The old man lived at the far edge of the alien colony, in a broken hut made of rusted metal sheets and cracked stone, the kind of place no one wanted to look at twice. Every morning he woke up before the twin suns rose, his bones aching, his hands stiff from years of work, his beard long and gray, his clothes patched so many times that no one could tell their original color anymore. He moved slowly, dragging his feet, but his eyes were still sharp, still watching everything. The aliens of the colony rarely spoke to him. To them he was nothing but an old, forgotten human, too weak to fight, too poor to matter, too strange to be trusted. Children sometimes threw stones at his hut and laughed, calling him Ghost Man, while the elders shook their heads, whispering that his kind was dangerous long ago. But useless now, the old man did not answer them. He fixed broken things instead. Old pumps that no one cared about, lamps that had lost their light, tools that farmers dropped. He worked quietly, with only the sound of his tools and the beating of his lonely heart to keep him company. At night, when the colony lights dimmed, he sat outside with a cracked metal cup of weak tea, staring at the alien stars. Stars that once meant adventure, now only meant distance and silence. Sometimes he muttered to himself, sometimes he remembered voices long gone, but mostly he sat in silence, the silence of someone the world had already forgotten. But fate does not forget, fate waits that night, when the winds howled through the dusty streets of the colony, and the moons cast pale silver light. The old man sat outside again, holding his tea with shaky hands, listening to the creak of his hut when he heard it. 3 soft knocks. At first he thought it was the wind, then came another knock, louder this time. Slow, uncertain, desperate. The old man frowned. He had not had visitors in years. Who would knock at his door in the middle of the night? Slowly he stood, his back stiff, his legs trembling, and he shuffled toward the door. His hand reaching for the rusty handle, he pulled it open and froze. Standing in the doorway was a woman, not human, but alien, her skin faintly glowing with pale blue light, her eyes wide and frightened, her dark hair tangled and wet with sweat. She was breathing hard as if she had been running for a long time, her clothes torn, her arms shaking. "Please," she whispered, her voice breaking like glass. "Please help me." The old man blinked, unsure if his mind was playing tricks. No one ever asked him for help. No one even looked at him, yet here was an alien woman, her eyes full of terror, begging him. He stepped back without speaking, and she stumbled inside, almost falling to the floor, her hands clutching something hidden under her cloak. The old man closed the door slowly, his hands still trembling, his heart beating faster than it had in years. He had lived quietly, forgotten, ignored, invisible, but in that single moment with those words his life changed. The woman leaned against the wall, her chest rising and falling, tears running down her glowing cheeks. She looked at him as if he were her last hope. Outside, the wind carried distant sounds, shouts, footsteps, the heavy clang of metal armor. Someone was searching, someone was hunting. The old man's sharp eyes narrowed. He understood now. She was being chased, and somehow she had chosen his broken hut, his forgotten life, his lonely corner of the colony. He stared at her, at the fear in her eyes, at the way her hands shook, and for the first time in many years, the old man felt something stir inside him. Something he thought was long gone. A memory, a fire, a strength. The night was no longer silent. The forgotten old man was no longer alone. For when the alien woman knocked, destiny entered his life, and it would not leave quietly. The old man stared at the alien woman trembling in his hut, the faint glow of her skin, casting strange shadows on the broken walls. She looked young, though her face carried marks of fear that made her seem older. Her breathing was sharp, her chest rising and falling as if she had outrun death itself. The old man did not move at first, his wrinkled hands holding the door handle tight, his eyes fixed on her as if she were a ghost that had stepped into his forgotten world. Finally, he spoke in a low, tired voice. "Why are you here?" The woman's lips trembled, her voice cracked as she whispered, "They are coming for me. Please hide me or they will kill me." Her words were broken, filled with terror. She clutched the object hidden under her cloak, pulling it closer to her chest as if it were her only lifeline. The old man's eyes narrowed. He noticed how she kept pressing her arms around it, guarding it with desperation. It was not just herself she wanted to save. There was something else, something dangerous. "Who is coming?" the old man asked again, his tone sharper now, his heart beating harder. It had been years since anyone spoke to him like this, years since anyone trusted him with anything. The woman's glowing eyes lifted to his, full of despair and something deeper, hope. "The enforcers," she whispered. They know what I carry. They will tear apart this colony to find it if they see me here, if they see you. Both of us will be dead." The old man took a slow step closer, his bones creaking, his shadow stretching across the dirt floor. He could hear distant shouts outside, faint but growing nearer, boots stomping against the metal roads of the colony. The sound of weapons clinking, it was true. Someone was searching. His voice dropped even lower. "What are you hiding?" The woman shook her head, tears welling in her eyes. "I cannot tell you. Not now. If you know, they will pull it from you. They will break your body and mind until you give it away. Please, old one, I beg you. Just let me stay hidden until they pass, then I will leave. You will never see me again." Her words fell like broken glass. Cutting into the silence, the old man's mind raced. For years he had lived ignored, invisible, forgotten, but now, in this dark moment, destiny had walked into his home. His sharp eyes studied her. The way her hands trembled yet refused to release the hidden object, the way her legs shook but still kept her standing. There was courage in her fear, desperation in her strength. A loud crash echoed outside, closer now. Voices barking orders in a language thick with command. The old man knew those voices. The enforcers were brutal. They did not care about right or wrong. They cared only about obedience, and if they were here hunting at night. Then the woman's secret was something greater than anyone in the colony could imagine. "Why me?" the old man muttered under his breath, almost to himself, his voice rough with years of silence. "There are hundreds of doors in this colony. Why knock on mine?" The woman swallowed hard, her glowing eyes never leaving his. "Because no one looks at you," she said, her words sharp yet trembling. "You are forgotten, invisible, and that makes you the only one who can save me." The old man froze, her words cutting through him like a blade. Forgotten, invisible. Yes, that was what the colony always called him, what he had accepted as his fate. But now she said it was his strength, his shield, the very reason she had chosen him. His chest rose and fell with a heavy breath. The fire he thought long dead stirred faintly. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Shadows passed across the cracks of his broken hut. A torch flared, voices muttered. The enforcers were right outside. The woman pressed against the wall, clutching the hidden object tight, her entire body trembling, her whisper barely audible. "Please, if they find me, they will destroy everything. Not just me, not just you, but the whole colony." The old man's sharp eyes flicked toward the door. Then back at her, the voices outside grew louder, closer. The sound of fists pounding against nearby huts echoed in the night. The colony was being torn apart piece by piece. It was only a matter of time before they reached his door. He could have told her to leave. He could have pushed her out into the night, shut the door and returned to his lonely silence. But something deep inside him refused. Something ancient, something human. He had been forgotten for too long. Now fate had knocked on his door, just as she had. The old man's voice came out firm, steady, a voice that had not been heard in years. "Stay silent, do not move," he said, his sharp eyes narrowing as the pounding of the enforcers drew nearer. "If they come, they will find an old man and nothing more." The woman nodded, tears slipping down her glowing cheeks, her body trembling, her heart clinging to his words, and in that moment, the forgotten man became her last wall, her last shield. Outside, a heavy knock shook the hut, the sound booming through the night. The enforcers had arrived at his door. The heavy knock echoed through the hut like thunder, dust falling from the cracked ceiling. The old man stood frozen near the door, his hand tight on the handle, his sharp eyes staring at the wood as if he could see through it. Outside, the muffled voices of the enforcers grew louder. Orders barked, footsteps circling. The woman pressed herself against the wall, clutching her cloak tighter, her glowing skin trembling in the pale firelight, her eyes wide with fear. The old man raised a finger to his lips, demanding silence without words. The knocking stopped, and for a long moment there was only the sound of boots crunching on the dirt road outside. Then a voice like metal, deep and cruel, spoke. "Old man, open your door. We know she passed this way. Do not make us break it." The words cut into the silence like knives. The old man did not answer, his heart beating hard in his chest, his mind racing. He was forgotten, yes, invisible to the colony, but the enforcers never forgot. They broke those who stood in their way. Slowly, he pushed open the door just enough to look out, his wrinkled face calm, his sharp eyes steady. "What are you shouting for in the middle of the night?" he said, his voice dry, rough, but firm. "I am just an old man. No one comes here." The enforcers glared at him, tall figures wrapped in black armor, glowing visors hiding their faces. weapons strapped across their backs. Their leader leaned forward, his metal voice colder. If she is inside, if you hide her, you will die with her. The old man did not blink, did not flinch. Look for yourself, he said, stepping aside slightly. His hut's broken walls and rusty shelves visible, nothing more than a poor man's life. The enforcers sneered, muttered to one another, then finally moved on, their heavy boots fading slowly into the night. The old man shut the door quietly, his hand trembling for the first time. The woman slid down against the wall, tears of relief running down her face, but her grip on the hidden object never loosened, not even for a second. The old man looked at her, his sharp eyes narrowing, his voice low. Now, tell me what you are hiding. The woman shook her head, whispering, You do not understand. It is dangerous if you know. They will kill you. But the old man stepped closer, his shadow falling over her, his voice hard. They will kill me anyway if I do not know. I need to understand why you came here, why they hunt you, and why you guard that thing as if it were your soul. Her lips trembled, her glowing eyes filled with sorrow. Then slowly, with shaking hands, she pulled the object from under her cloak, a small device no bigger than a man's hand, round and black, its surface etched with silver lines that pulsed with faint light. The old man's sharp eyes widened. He had not seen such a thing in years. Not since the wars. The woman held it close, her voice soft and breaking. This is forbidden. They call it the core. It is a piece of human origin, hidden for centuries. Only humans can make it live again. Only humans can control it, and if they discover it exists, they will destroy entire worlds to keep it hidden. The old man's chest rose sharply. His wrinkled hands reached out, trembling as they hovered over the device. He could feel its hum, faint but real, like a heartbeat. His voice came out rough. Why give it to me? Why risk coming here? Tears rolled down her cheeks as she whispered, Because it answered you, not me. The old man frowned, then slowly touched the core. The moment his fingers brushed its surface, the silver lines flared bright, filling the dark hut with white-blue light. The woman gasped, covering her mouth with her trembling hand. The old man's eyes widened, visions flashing before him, armies marching, humans in shining armor, great ships flying across the stars, battles fought with fire and courage, a history he had buried, a past the galaxy had forgotten. He pulled back his hand quickly, his chest heaving, sweat on his brow. The core dimmed again, resting quietly in the woman's lap. She stared at him, her glowing eyes wide. Do you see now? Only you can make it breathe. Only you can awaken it. That is why they fear you. That is why they hunt me. If they find us, they will rip this colony apart to dust. The old man staggered back, his sharp eyes burning with something not felt in years, his voice shaking but fierce. I was nothing. A shadow, a ghost, a useless old man, he said, his fists trembling. But this thing, this core, it knows me. The woman nodded slowly, whispering, Not just you. It knows your kind. It remembers, even if the galaxy does not. Her words hung heavy in the air, carrying the weight of destiny. The old man sat down heavily on a broken chair, his sharp eyes never leaving the core, his heart beating fast. He had been forgotten by the colony, mocked by children, ignored by leaders, but now, in this dark night, a secret older than stars rested in his hut, a secret that chose him, and outside the sound of the enforcers returned. Louder this time, dozens of boots marching, voices shouting. The hunt was not over. It was only beginning. The old man closed his eyes, his wrinkled hand tightening into a fist. He knew then that his quiet life had ended. The forgotten man was now tied to a secret that could shake the galaxy. The night outside the hut grew louder, the sound of boots hammering on metal streets, the clash of armor, the hiss of alien voices calling orders. The colony had never heard such noise at this hour, and the people inside their homes held their breath, peeking through cracks in their doors. Afraid to even whisper, the old man sat in silence, his sharp eyes fixed on the glowing core in the alien woman's lap, her hand still wrapped around it like a child clings to life itself. They will not stop, she whispered, her voice shaking. They can smell fear. They can hear a lie. They will break every wall until they find us. Her glowing eyes darted toward the door, then back at him. You should have pushed me out. You should have left me to die, but now you are caught too. The old man leaned forward, his wrinkled face hard, his voice steady. If I had pushed you out, you would already be dead. And still they would come for me once this core woke in my hands. The woman lowered her gaze, silent tears slipping down her cheeks. Outside, a heavy horn blasted, its echo shaking the colony walls. It was the enforcer's call. The hunt had begun. From one end of the colony to the other, torches lit the streets, Squads moved in patterns, houses smashed open. People dragged out and questioned. Every corner searched, the old man stood slowly, his bones aching but his body steady. He moved to the door and peered through a small crack. Shadows passed, armored figures kicking down doors. Cries of frightened families filled the air. The colony had become a cage, and inside it the hunters prowled. The woman clutched the core tighter, her whisper desperate. "We must run." But the old man shook his head. "No, if we run, we are seen, and the chase ends with our blood. If we hide, maybe we have a chance." She looked at him with confusion. "Hide where?" "They will search every house," the old man's sharp eyes flashed. "They will search every house that matters, but not mine, because to them I do not matter." Even as he spoke, fists pounded at a neighbor's hut. Screams filled the air. Heavy boots stomped closer. The old man took the core from her trembling hands, its surface warm, alive under his touch. He hid it quickly inside a rusted toolbox near the wall, then covered it with scraps of useless metal, his hands steady, his movements precise, as if his fingers remembered secrets of hiding and surviving long before this night. The woman stared at him, whispering, "Why help me? Why risk your life for me?" The old man paused, his sharp eyes meeting hers. "Because once, long ago, someone risked their life for me, and I lived while they did not. I will not make the same mistake twice." The noise outside grew deafening, the pounding of boots now just steps away. The woman gasped, pressing herself into the darkest corner of the hut. The old man straightened his back, smoothed his ragged shirt, and stood by the door. Then came the knock, heavy and final, shaking the door on its hinges. A voice shouted, "Old man, open up!" The old man's voice came out calm, rough but steady. "I have nothing. I am nothing. You know that." The door creaked open as the enforcers pushed their way in, their armor gleaming in the torchlight, their tall shadows falling across the broken floor. The leader stepped forward, visor glowing red, his voice like cold iron. "We search all, even the forgotten." His eyes swept the hut, broken shelves, a rusted chair, scraps of metal piled in corners. He sneered. "Pathetic," with a wave of his hand. His soldiers spread out, overturning boxes, smashing tools, lifting mats, their heavy boots crushing the old man's life piece by piece. The woman held her breath, pressing her hand against her mouth in the shadows. The old man stood still, watching, his sharp eyes showing no fear, only quiet calculation. One soldier kicked at the rusted toolbox, but it did not open. Covered with so many layers of junk, it looked worthless. The soldier scoffed and moved on. Minutes dragged like hours. Every second a knife at the throat, until finally the leader turned, his voice full of disdain. Empty, useless, just like the man, with a flick of his wrist. The soldiers filed out, boots hammering away. The door slammed shut behind them. The old man let out a slow breath, his hand trembling only slightly as he reached for the toolbox. He did not open it, only pressed his hand against its cold lid. The woman crawled out from the corner, her glowing eyes wide with shock, her voice a whisper. "They will come again. They will come until they find it." The old man nodded, his face hard, his sharp eyes burning with something fierce. "Then we do not wait for them. We move before they can." He turned to her, his voice strong. "This hunt is not theirs alone anymore. It is mine." The woman stared at him, and for the first time she did not see a broken old man. She saw something else rising in his shadow, something she could not name but could feel in her bones. Outside, the horns sounded again. The hunt spread wider, the colony burning with fear. But inside the broken hut, the forgotten man had begun to awaken, and the enforcers had no idea what storm they had stirred. The old man sat in silence after the enforcers left, his hut broken even more, tools scattered, shelves overturned. But his sharp eyes were not on the ruins. They were fixed on the rusted toolbox where the core lay hidden. His hand rested on its lid as if he could still feel its pulse, faint and steady like a heart waiting to be awakened. The alien woman watched him from the corner, her glowing eyes wide, her body still trembling. She had expected him to collapse in fear after the search, but instead he sat upright, his back straighter than before, his breath heavier, as if something deep inside him was climbing out of the shadows. He closed his eyes and memories stirred, long-buried images flashing behind his lids. He remembered the academy where he once trained, the clash of wooden weapons, the drills under burning suns, the shouts of commanders telling him that humans were born to adapt, to endure, to fight. He had been young then, strong and sharp, but the wars had ended, the galaxy had changed, and humans were cast aside. He had grown old in silence, his strength forgotten, his fire buried, but the core had touched him, and the fire flickered again, The woman's whisper broke the silence. What did it show you? Her voice was soft, afraid yet curious. The old man opened his eyes slowly, his sharp gaze cutting through the dim light. It showed me what I was, what I left behind. It reminded me that once I was not useless. He paused, his hands tightening into fists. And maybe I'm not useless now. She stepped closer, clutching her torn cloak around her shoulders. You cannot fight them. You are only one man. They are many. They are strong. They will crush you. Her words trembled, but the old man shook his head. You do not understand. Strength is not in numbers. Strength is in knowing where to strike, how to survive when no one else can. His eyes narrowed, the fire in them glowing brighter. And that is what they have forgotten about humans. We endure, we wait, and when the time comes, we rise. He stood slowly, his bones aching but his steps firm. He began gathering the scattered tools, but not as a poor fixer. This time as a craftsman with purpose. Metal rods, broken gears, sharp fragments, he worked quickly, his hands steady, his mind clear. The woman watched in silence, awe spreading across her glowing face. This was no longer a broken old man patching scraps together. This was a warrior preparing his field. Every sound of metal against metal was like a heartbeat. As he worked, the core pulsed faintly from inside the toolbox. A soft light seeping through the cracks, the old man paused, then opened it, the glow spilling into the room. His wrinkled hand reached out, and the core leapt alive again at his touch. Visions flooding his mind, shields, weapons, tactics of forgotten battles. He gasped but held on, sweat on his brow, his sharp eyes burning brighter. The core was not just a relic, it was a teacher, a memory of humanity's power left hidden. The woman whispered, her voice trembling. It is choosing you, it knows you, I was right to find you. The old man turned to her, his rough voice steady. No, you were desperate. You knocked on the only door no one else would open. But fate has its own plans. He lifted the core, its glow reflecting in his eyes. This is not chance. It is a calling. Outside horns blared again, the enforcers spreading further, dragging villagers into the streets. Demanding answers, the colony shook under their fury. But inside the hut the old man stood tall, his shoulders squared, his breath deep, the weight of years sliding off him like dust. The woman stepped closer, her glowing eyes filled with both fear and hope. If you stand against them, you will die, she whispered, her voice breaking. But if you do nothing, we will all die anyway. Her words hung heavy in the air, and the old man nodded slowly. Then better to stand and fall with fire than to sit and rot in silence. He placed the core against his chest, and for a heartbeat the glow wrapped around him, lines of silver light tracing across his skin, faint but real, his old body trembling not with weakness, but with power awakening inside. His sharp eyes shone with something fierce, something long lost. The woman gasped, covering her mouth, whispering, You are becoming what they fear. The old man looked at her, his voice quiet but steady. Not becoming, remembering. The hunt outside grew louder, torches flashing against the windows. The enforcers were close again, but the old man no longer felt like prey. He felt the fire of his youth stirring, the strength of his kind awakening. The forgotten man had lived long enough in shadows. Now he was ready to step into the fire, and as the door rattled under the fists of armored hands once more, the old man tightened his grip on the glowing core, his sharp eyes fixed forward, his voice low, steady, and full of resolve. If they want me, they will find more than they came for. The night exploded with sound as the enforcers pounded on the old man's door again. The wooden frame shuddered under their fists, dust falling from the ceiling. Torches flickered outside, their red flames glowing like angry eyes. The colony gathered in silence at a distance, families huddled in shadows, no one daring to speak, every heart waiting to see if the forgotten human would finally break. Inside the hut, the alien woman pressed herself against the wall, clutching her torn cloak, her glowing eyes wide with fear. But the old man stood in the center of the room, the core in his hand burning with silver light, his sharp eyes steady, his shoulders squared. No longer bent by years of loneliness, the door burst open with a crash. Armored enforcers stormed inside, their visors glowing crimson, weapons raised. Their leader stepped forward, tall and cold, his voice like iron. Old man, your silence ends tonight. Where is she? His gaze swept the room, catching the trembling glow of the woman in the corner, his visor flashing with cruel delight. But when he turned back to the old man, his steps faltered, for in the human's hand the core pulsed like a living star. The old man lifted it higher, the glow spilling across the hut, painting the walls with silver fire. The enforcers froze for a heartbeat, whispers hissing through their helmets. Impossible. It responds, one muttered, but only to... Before he could finish, the old man's wrinkled hand tightened and the core flared, light cracking through the air like lightning. The ground trembled. The torches outside sputtered and died. The leader raised his weapon, his voice sharp with rage. Seize it! Kill him! But the old man moved before they could, his body slow with age yet precise, his steps sure, the core guiding his movements. Energy burst from its surface, striking the first soldier, sending him crashing against the wall, armor sparking. The woman gasped, covering her mouth as she watched the forgotten man fight like a warrior of legend. The enforcers surged forward, blades drawn, their armor gleaming. But the old man twisted, ducked, his body remembering motions long buried. His hand slammed the core against the ground, sending a shockwave across the hut. The floor cracked. Soldiers stumbled. One lost his footing and fell. Another's weapon shattered in his grip. The colony outside gasped, whispers spreading like fire. The human fights. The human fights. The woman stepped closer, her glowing eyes wide, her voice trembling. You cannot hold them all. But the old man's sharp eyes burned brighter, his voice steady as stone. I do not need to hold them. I only need to show them I am not nothing. The leader roared, charging forward with his massive blade. But the old man raised the core, silver light bursting outward. The blade struck the glow and shattered into shards. The leader stumbled back, his visor cracked, his voice full of disbelief. You are not supposed to exist. Humans were broken, weak, forgotten. The old man stepped closer, the core humming louder. Yes, forgotten. And that is why you thought we were gone. His voice cut sharp through the night. But even the forgotten can rise again. With one last surge, the old man struck the ground. The core blazing like a sun, energy rushed outward, knocking the enforcers through the doorway into the street. Their armor smoking, their visors shattered, the colony screamed, not in fear but in awe. Hundreds of glowing eyes watched as the forgotten human stood tall in the doorway, silver light spilling from his hand. The enforcers scrambled, their leader on his knees, rage and terror twisting his broken visor, his voice shaking. This is not possible. One man cannot. But the old man's sharp eyes cut him silent, his voice firm, echoing across the colony. One man can when he has nothing left to lose. The soldiers dragged their leader away, retreating into the dark, their horns blaring, calling for more, calling for war. But the people of the colony no longer looked at the enforcers. Their glowing eyes were fixed on the old man, their whispers now a roar. He is human. He is hero. He is ours. The woman fell to her knees, tears running down her glowing face. She whispered, You saved me. No, you saved all of us. The old man looked at her, his chest rising with heavy breaths, his wrinkled hand trembling as he lowered the core, his voice quiet but strong. No, this was only the beginning, because in the distance, horns sounded again, louder, deeper, carrying across the night sky. The enforcers would return with greater force, with more soldiers, with fire and fury. And the forgotten man knew he had awakened a war he could not run from. But his sharp eyes did not waver. His shoulders did not bend. He had lived too long in silence, too long in shadows. Now the galaxy would remember the name of the human they thought useless. Now the fight had begun. And this time, the old man would not fight alone. The dawn came slowly over the colony, the twin suns rising with pale gold light, shining on streets still cracked from the night's battle. Smoke drifted in the air. Broken weapons lay scattered, and the walls of houses still trembled from the shockwaves. The people of the colony stood outside in silence, their glowing eyes watching the hut at the edge where everything had changed. Whispers ran like wind through the crowd. The human fought. The old one stood. The enforcers fled inside the hut. The old man sat on a broken chair, his breath heavy, his body trembling with exhaustion. Yet his sharp eyes were clear. The core rested on the table before him, dim now as if asleep, its silver veins no longer burning but pulsing faintly like a heart waiting for the next call. The alien woman knelt nearby, her torn cloak wrapped around her shoulders, her glowing eyes fixed on him with awe and sorrow. She whispered softly, You should not have survived that. Yet you did. The old man gave a faint smile, his wrinkled lips dry. I should not have survived many things in my life, he said, his voice rough but steady. But still here I am. Stubborn as the stones, he leaned forward, resting his hand on the core, feeling its warmth seep into his palm. And still here is this, reminding me that humans were never truly gone, only forgotten. Outside, the horns of the enforcers echoed again, distant but heavy, their call carrying across the hills. The colony shuddered at the sound. Mothers pulling their children close, men and women tightening their fists, fear rising again, but the old man stood slowly, his bones aching yet his back straight. He stepped into the sunlight, the core held against his chest. The crowd parted as he walked, silence falling heavy, hundreds of eyes fixed on him, the leader of the colony, a tall alien elder with silver skin and trembling hands, stepped forward, his voice quivering. "Why do they fear you, old man? Why do they send armies for one forgotten human?" The old man lifted the core higher, its glow flaring faintly in the light of dawn, his voice carrying across the crowd. "Because they know the truth. They know humans were not weak. They know we were fire hidden in ash. They know one spark can burn an empire." Gasps rippled through the people, whispers turning to cries of fire and ash. "Spark in dark. Human hero." The elder bowed his head slowly, the first in the colony to lower himself before the man they once mocked. "Then stand for us, forgotten one. Stand not as ghost but as shield." His voice cracked. "For if you fall, we all fall with you." The old man's sharp eyes scanned the crowd, faces filled with fear but also something more. Hope. A hope they had not dared feel in years. His chest rose with a deep breath and he nodded slowly. "I will stand. But not as shield alone. If I stand, you must stand too. Because no hero can save those who refuse to rise with him." The woman stepped forward, her glowing hand resting lightly on his arm, her voice trembling but strong. "You are not forgotten anymore. You are remembered, and through you we remember ourselves." Her words struck the crowd like lightning. Voices rose, first whispers, then chants. "Remembered. Remembered, hero, hero," until the air shook with their cries. The old man felt the core hum louder in his hand, feeding on their voices, their belief, its silver light burning brighter. His wrinkled face lifted to the sun's, and for the first time in decades, he did not feel alone, he did not feel useless. He felt the weight of destiny resting on him, heavy yet steady. The enforcers' horns grew louder, closer. An army marching toward the colony, the ground trembling under their boots. But this time the colony did not cower behind doors. They stood in the streets side by side, their glowing eyes fixed on the horizon, and at their front stood the old man, core blazing in his hand. He turned once more to the woman who had knocked on his door, the one who had begged him for help, the one who had brought him back from the shadows. His sharp eyes softened for a moment, his voice low so only she could hear. "You gave me a reason to rise again." She shook her head, tears glimmering in her eyes. "No. You were always a hero, you only needed to remember." The first line of enforcers appeared at the edge of the colony, weapons drawn, armor glowing, horns blaring. But their steps slowed when they saw the sight before them. Not just a broken village, not just a forgotten man, but a people united. And at their center a human standing tall, silver fire burning in his hands. The old man lifted the core high, its light blazing like a second sun. His voice thundered across the land, carrying to friend and enemy alike. "I was forgotten, but no longer. Today I stand, today I fight, and today I am remembered." The colony roared with him, their voices shaking the sky. The enforcers hesitated, and for the first time in years fear spread in their ranks. For they realized the truth too late. The battle had begun, and the galaxy would remember the hero they thought lost forever.